Claudia Lawrence's sinister disappearance is one of the most famous criminal cases in the UK. The 35-year-old chef left work at around 2:30 p.m. on March 18, 2009, and arrived home safely. During the afternoon, she exchanged messages with several friends, and in the evening she spoke to her parents on her mobile phone. But after saying goodbye, the shy university chef gave no further signs of life. 2 days later, the police searched her home in York and concluded that Claudia probably went to work as usual, but later they found unidentified fingerprints and DNA in her house. Moreover, after analyzing the CCTV cameras in the neighborhood, many suspicious men were seen on the streets lurking around Lawrence's house. Despite the best efforts of the local police, Claudia is still missing, and her mysterious case continues to puzzle the nation. Claudia Elizabeth Lawrence was born on February 27, 1974, to a middle-class family in Malton, North Yorkshire. Peter, her father, was a successful country solicitor in York, while her mother Joan worked for the town and even served as mayor for one term. Claudia also had a sister Ali, who was 3 years older than her. They moved from Darlington to Malton before the girls were born, and they lived a comfortable and pleasant life. She went to York College for Girls, a private school that was closed in 1997 due to a cash crisis. Claudia attended school there until she turned 19, then pursued her passion for cooking by enrolling in a catering college and becoming a chef. She started her career at various hotels and restaurants in York, like the Quality Hotel and the Best Western Monk Bar Hotel. However, she grew weary of the social limitations that came with the work hours, so she made a decision to switch things up. In 2006, she began working as a chef at the Roger Kirk Centre's Galleria restaurant at the University of York. She was considered a quiet and reliable worker by everyone, and at the time of her disappearance, she mostly worked morning shifts. Lawrence used to live at 18 Thirlmere Drive, but in 2007, she purchased a cozy cottage for £180,000 in Heworth, the northeastern suburb of York. Claudia's friends described her as a shy person, yet she managed to live a vibrant social life. She only had several short-term relationships, which, according to some reports, were often conducted on a concurrent basis. It was also rumored that she had covert sexual relationships with men, some of whom were married or in relationships. Her family and friends might not have known about all of her romances because she was very discreet about them. She often visited the nearby The Nag's Head pub a few doors next to her home, a regular place to meet her father and friends. Various reports also mentioned how Claudia enjoyed partying and how the attractive 35-year-old woman enjoyed men's company. It's worth mentioning that Claudia supposedly explored job opportunities in Cyprus and visited the island 5 times prior to the events, but we'll get to this later. And that's basically how we arrive at the time of her disappearance. According to David Oxer, a friend and colleague, on the night of March 16/17, Claudia was in the city celebrating St. Patrick's Day until 4 a.m. with an alleged new boyfriend. The police haven't been able to confirm this information because Oxer only told them a year later and no one else has verified it. The next day, on March 18, 2009, a Wednesday, Claudia started her shift at the Roger Kirk Centre at 5:57 a.m., which she finished at 2 p.m., had a phone call with her mother, and at 2:35 p.m., a security camera recorded Claudia leaving the campus. Her home was 1.7 miles north of the workplace on foot, and she walked straight to 46 Heworth Road. Another CCTV above the shop next to the post office at 204 Melrose Gate captured her 12 minutes later, as she appeared to stop for a moment and drop something into the post box. Claudia then continued walking, but a coworker, Joe, saw her and offered her a ride. Joe picked the chef up at 225 Melrose Gate and dropped her off at her house at 2:50 p.m. Shortly after, she left to run some errands and met 50-year-old Linda Chapman, a neighbor and childminder. According to Chapman, she saw Claudia at the local shops, and she appeared to be normal. Following this, at 3:05 p.m., another friend saw Lawrence returning home. A private CCTV camera located inside the opposite house confirmed this sighting. On that afternoon, she exchanged messages with Liz Holder, a former colleague she knew from the King's Head in Malton. Holder later admitted that they texted until 7 p.m., and it was just a general chit-chat. She was getting up early to walk to work the next morning, and I replied saying she shouldn't be walking to work at that time, but she said she wasn't worried, and it was good exercise, she said. For the next few hours, it is unclear what Claudia was doing, but in the evening, Lawrence spoke to her parents on her Samsung SGHD 900 mobile phone. She had a conversation with her father at 8:10 p.m., and the two made plans to meet up at the Nag's Head on Friday night. At 8:23 p.m., she had a call with Joan, who later recalled that Claudia sounded normal and relaxed, and they started to share ideas and prepare for the forthcoming Mother's Day on March 22nd. The television was quietly playing in the background as they both watched their favorite show, Location, 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 which aired from 8 to 9 p.m. Claudia's other favorite show was the Hollyoaks soap opera. The daughter said goodbye after just 7 minutes at 8:30 p.m. because she wanted to retire early so she could wake up at 5 a.m. to walk to work, since her car, a dark blue Vauxhall Corsa she purchased from JB Motors in Malton, was in a car repair garage in Layerthorpe after breaking down in the snow on March 4th and was getting a new engine installed. Before making the call, she sent a final message at 8:23 p.m. to Jennifer King, a barmaid at the pub and former housemate, and received another at 9:12 p.m. from Steve Sammons, who used to work at the Nag's Head but was employed in Cyprus during that time. Claudia sent him multiple texts from 6:08 p.m. onwards, sharing her struggle to find an affordable hotel and flight for her trip to the island. Regarding the last message, Sammons said, "The text I sent at 9:12 was about her coming out sometime, but I cannot remember the details because the police have all my texts." Her last message to Jennifer was the following: "Bloody hell, I've got to do 12 days on the trot, early mornings too. No fun for me." Nothing suspicious at first, but her acquaintances knew Claudia had a trademark in her messages, an X at the end of each message, symbolizing a kiss that she always sent to her closest ones. But not this time, and she surely wasn't working 12 days on the trot since the restaurant was closed on weekends. Something wasn't right already. Did she actually send the last message, or was there someone else with her? Even though police revealed she was a night owl, she usually finished texting by 9, and it was extremely out of character that she didn't reply to an ongoing conversation. From the moment the last message was sent, Claudia Lawrence vanished without a trace, and no one has seen her since. The next day, she failed to show up for work, so her manager tried calling her at 10 a.m., but with no success. The phone rang as expected, but the boss was directed to voice messaging after a while. The 35-year-old had already made plans to meet her friend Susie Cooper at the Nag's Head later that night. Cooper arrived on time as planned and patiently waited for Lawrence, but she never showed up. She tried to reach her by phone and discussed her concerns with Jen King, but strangely, neither of them attempted to check on Claudia, who lived just 4 doors away. Instead, Cooper sent her a message saying, "Oh, thanks a lot for standing me up." Again, no reply. The next day, the friend became alarmed and informed Peter Lawrence that the avid texter Claudia didn't respond. It is important to add that I found unverified sources that state the friend actually tried to report Claudia's ominous absence, or at least an alleged witness saw a similar-looking woman at the police station. The two women were really good friends. They were so close that they had even made plans to go on a vacation to Greece in June. Cooper later said that the last time she saw Claudia was on March 13th, a Friday, when they met at the Nag's Head. According to the friend, the university chef spent the entire day in the pub, hanging out with various people and getting a little drunk, and I found sources that mentioned how sometimes the party continued back at Claudia's house. On March 20th, Peter Lawrence called his daughter's boss at the canteen and found out that nobody had seen or heard from her. Strangely, the manager and the university didn't report that the otherwise dependable chef missed 2 days and 2 shifts in a row without notice. It should have already been suspicious because she always informed her employer if she couldn't work for any reason. The father then used a spare key to open the door along with George Foreman, the landlord of the pub and close friend of Claudia. The bed was made, and there were some unwashed breakfast dishes in the kitchen sink, suggesting she had eaten something that morning. The two men found her handbag over the bedstead, with her purse, passport, and credit cards inside. A friend later claimed that Claudia only carried her handbag when she went out socially, but why was the passport in there? Her electric toothbrush was left on the kitchen drain board instead of the bathroom. The phone charger was missing. Old-fashioned slippers were left by the front door, and tucked away under the stairs were 2 carrier bags from TM Lewin. The latter was interesting because TM Lewin is a male fashion brand. They weren't able to locate her mobile phone, a GHD hair straightener she bought in May 2007, and a blue and gray Caramore backpack, which Claudia used to carry her Chef White. The circumstances indicated that she'd probably left for work at around 5 a.m., or was this all just a cover-up? Claudia Lawrence was reported missing at around 2 p.m. on March 20th, and the police began to investigate immediately, despite she was not considered vulnerable. Even the father was surprised that she wasn't given a few days to show up, as it is the standard procedure in similar cases. Detective Superintendent Ray Galloway was appointed to lead the inquiry, joined by Detective Chief Inspector Lucy Pope, who attended school with Claudia. The 35-year-old was described as white, around 5 feet 6 inches tall, slim build, with naturally brown hair and brown eyes, a vegetarian, and was last seen wearing a white t-shirt, blue jeans, and trainers. In the bathroom bin, they discovered an empty hair dye box and a pair of rubber gloves, indicating she may have dyed her own brown hair or applied the coloring to an unknown person. Friends mentioned, though, that she self-colored her hair on a regular basis but refused to do it for others. Her hairdresser, Nick Brignell, used to color her hair using a darker dye than usual, and he had done this just 3.5 weeks before she vanished. Brignell said, "She used to ring me up after an appointment to tell me I'd made it too blonde, so on occasions we weaved some dark through it instead to make it more brown. It seems like for the last time she used a bottle of Clairol dye in the color 62 and left another untouched, but based on the findings in the bathroom, she may have even gone further and bleached her hair. Weird in many ways. She didn't own a computer or have a Facebook account because she wasn't a fan of social media, but she loved texting and often sent hundreds of messages a day. Before she went missing, several reports claimed that weirdly behaving people were lurking on the streets of Heworth, so police investigated her route to work and sent out a public request for information. Despite the quick response from the authorities, in the beginning, they believed the woman vanished deliberately but would likely reappear in a couple of days, like in most cases. Although the family was convinced that Claudia had been kidnapped, police were unable to find any evidence on her usual route suggesting the chef was there, but unverified sources talked about a weird decision during the search. On March 26th, a week after Claudia's disappearance, police conducted an extensive search with the help of a civilian search and rescue team and their highly trained sniffer dogs. An animal was given her scent from her clothes and followed it all the way to the water's edge. After that, to verify the findings, the police sent their dogs separately, and it behaved exactly the same and tracked Claudia's sample to the river and even entered it. Nevertheless, the scene commander unexpectedly decided to overrule the sniffer dogs and called them back. I really want to emphasize that this story is not confirmed and may never have happened. It's unlikely that the woman left on purpose because she had already made plans with friends and family. Therefore, the most probable solution started to unfold, that Claudia probably knew the person who was involved in her disappearance. Criminal profilers believed that her personal life might hold the key to the situation. In the first 5 weeks, police searched 270 houses and other properties, along with 1,000 student rooms at the university. The detectives received 900 phone calls offering information and gathered 868 statements from potential witnesses. On April 24th, North Yorkshire Police upgraded the missing person case to a suspected murder case because there was no evidence of whether she was dead or alive. Any murder investigation has to prove a death, and at the moment we have no proof of Claudia's death. But 5 weeks on, we have no proof of her life, and I'm investigating her disappearance as one of suspected murder, Detective Galloway commented. Meanwhile, the parents had left a message on her phone saying, "Claudia, it's been 5 weeks since you disappeared without any trace at all. It's just so unusual for you not to be in contact that we just don't know what is happening. Despite many appeals, nobody's heard from you, and we're obviously extremely worried. Your mom and I have this morning each left a message on your mobile phone, just in case you are able still to listen to messages. Please listen to these messages. And if you're able to, please send just a quick text or make a quick call. You may not be able to do this, but we just hope there's that possibility that you can. There's absolutely nothing for you to worry about in terms of getting in contact. You're not in trouble with anybody, we just miss you. We just want to know that you're safe. As the investigation continued, detectives found out that Claudia's phone was functioning until 12:10 p.m. on March 19th, when someone intentionally turned it off. Before that, the Samsung was connected to a radio tower in Heworth. The call from her manager placed her handset in a 9-mile area from the university to talk with Village. Unfortunately, this only meant that the device stayed in the area, and Lawrence's whereabouts remained a mystery. According to the police, here's what might have happened. Someone looks at the phone at 12:10 p.m., notices a missed call, realizes the phone is still switched on, and then switches it off. It appears what we get here is an explicit detachment, meaning the suspect had the calmness of mind to think, I'd better switch the phone off in the normal way. Authorities recently disclosed that the sole CCTV camera along her regular route was the one at the Melrose Gate post office, approximately 0.8 miles south of her home. But unfortunately, the footage from the morning of March 19th did not capture Claudia passing. Either she took a different way to the campus, or she never made it there. Police looked into a witness account about an arguing couple along University Road at 6:10 a.m. in the morning of the events, but they couldn't get closer to the missing chef. The alleged witness, whose identity is unknown, was driving near the university when he caught sight of the incident. No detailed description of the car was given, only that it was maroon-colored and parked on the left-hand side with the passenger door wide open. He drives past, and as he looks in his wing mirror, his rear-view mirror, he actually believes the man is stood above the woman as if he is on some form of banking, Ray Galloway described. If the sighting was true and Claudia was indeed the female passenger, it's worth noting that the location would be the perfect place for her to be dropped off because she often took that side road to quickly get to the restaurant by going through the wooded area. 6 weeks after the disappearance, Claudia's mother made her first appeal for help after a cyclist who was riding towards Heworth encountered a mysterious man on Melrose Gate on the morning of the events. Joan chose to do it on her own because she and Peter went through a difficult divorce in 1996. The man was seen with a young woman on the left-hand side of the road close to Melrose Gate Bridge at 5:35 a.m., about 0.6 miles south of her home. The cyclist crossed the bridge, reached 146 Melrose Gate, and described the unknown figure as being skinny, 5 feet 6 inches tall, wearing dark combat trousers with pockets and buttons on either side, a dark hooded top with the hood up concealing his face, and having a distinctive way of smoking using his left hand. As Detective Galloway shared with the press, he has a cigarette in his left hand, which is apparently unusual, and he is seen to take a drag from the cigarette as the witness passes by. The young woman next to him had mousy brown hair, wearing a blue waist-length jacket with buttons and pockets, a white shirt, white trainers, and slim-fitting jeans. This observation was particularly significant because the police knew that Claudia owned similar clothing. They also mentioned that the woman was standing with her back to the gray steel railings near the electricity substation and was facing the man, who was about 2 or 3 feet away. There is no specific conversation, no trauma or agitation. They are stood looking at each other, Mr. Galloway said. Authorities considered the location important because the sighting was in the right place at the right time, before Claudia could reach the CCTV cameras at the Melrose Gate shops. Forensic experts carried out a thorough fingerprint examination of the area, but they didn't find anything helpful. Police were concerned that no one had come forward despite the detailed description, although Peter Lawrence said the two might have had nothing to do with the case. If he gets this message, and there was absolutely nothing untoward, it would be extremely helpful if we knew that. Somebody else must know who he is from the description. Husband, partner, brother, neighbor, workmate. We really need to know, even if it is just to eliminate, he said. According to Humberside Airport's weather report, the sunrise in York on March 19, 2009 was at 6:09 a.m. The morning was chilly, with a temperature of 35.6 degrees Fahrenheit, or 2 degrees Celsius outside. There was no wind, and the sky was overcast. The visibility was just 0.062 miles, or 99.8 meters, which is considered low and meant sky-obscuring fog. The international definition of fog is a visibility of fewer than 3,300 feet, or 1 kilometer, so the weather conditions were far from ideal for observing anything of importance. In parallel with the official investigation, Crime Stoppers offered a £10,000 reward to anyone who could provide helpful information about Claudia's whereabouts or anyone connected to her disappearance. On June 2, 2009, BBC Crime Watch also covered the case. As a result, police received over 1,200 calls, but none of them were relevant. In September 2009, the search had been extended to the Greek part of Cyprus because the chef had received various job offers from the Mediterranean country before, and Detective Superintendent Galloway confirmed that Lawrence knew several people who live on the island. Nonetheless, the main reason for the trip was that the final message Claudia received at 9:12 p.m. on March 18th was sent by Steve Salmons, the bar worker in Cyprus. As I told you earlier, she had been planning to travel to the island before her disappearance and had visited Cyprus on at least 5 occasions in the previous years. 4 detectives were sent out to question people who knew her. All of them were British nationals. Detective Galloway later said that the interviewees had been reluctant and less than candid when spoken to. Some of the people that we have contacted have denied knowing Claudia or being in a relationship with her. I don't believe this to be true, he added. Continuing the Cyprus line, shortly before the chef disappeared, one Robbie Campbell, who owned a bar in Coral Bay, came back to the UK with 3 friends to pick up 4 vans, which they then drove to Italy and loaded onto a ship. The police interviewed the businessman, but when Campbell allegedly asked the detectives how Claudia could leave Britain without her passport, one officer jokingly said, "In the back of your van." The bar owner claimed they picked up the cars in Glasgow, and although they drove through York, they didn't stop to see the woman. The police also went after one of her ex-partners in Ireland. The man initially denied having any relationship with Claudia, but later confessed that they were dating back in 2008. On October 29th, North Yorkshire police revealed that a female jogger, who wished to remain anonymous, contacted them about a rusty old white van. She said that shortly before Lawrence went missing, she was jogging in the Melrose Gate area, where Claudia used to walk to work, and a rusty white vehicle parking there caught her attention. As the witness walked by the car, the driver attempted to talk to her, but she kept on going without stopping. Later, the jogger had seen the white van several times in Melrose Gate, and the man behind the wheel again tried to talk to other women passers-by. She claimed she never saw the white van again after Claudia disappeared. According to a police spokeswoman, the witness couldn't provide many details about the vehicle, except that it was old, dirty, rusty, and smaller than a transit van. Ray Galloway believed she had been the victim of someone she had been in a sexual relationship with. He said, "It's apparent that some of Claudia's relationships had an element of complexity and mystery to them. I am certain that some of these relationships were not known to her family or friends. This information wasn't made public for 3 months, until police were able to build up a rogues gallery of some of the men she had been involved with." On March 24, 2010, the police searched different parts of York, including Heslington. They examined a land close to a muddy farm track, and the following day they continued near the university on an area of land that is bordered by a playing field and student accommodation, but they didn't find anything noteworthy. On July 29, 2010, as time passed and detectives ran out of ideas, authorities reduced the number of officers working on the case, but more than 3 years later, on October 29, 2013, they decided to take another look at the mysterious disappearance that puzzled the whole country. As a part of this, North Yorkshire Police announced the creation of the new Major Crime Unit, which then carried out a new forensic search of Lawrence's apartment and belongings with modern technology, and the results were promising. They discovered additional fingerprints and an unknown man's DNA on an Embassy Regal cigarette end in her vehicle. Unfortunately, police weren't able to determine if the smoker in the car was left or right-handed, but we can play with the idea that maybe this was the same man who was seen smoking on the bridge. The position of the rear headrest on the right is also worth a look, as it was set higher than the others, indicating that at some point a taller person was in the car before, and for some reason, this small change hadn't been reset. The next interesting finding came from a journalist nicknamed Major Lang of Medium.com, who found an August 2008 street image of the front of Claudia's house, showing a similar box of Embassy Regal cigarettes thrown next to the doorway. This brand was popular in Scotland, Northern Ireland, and North England, and was one of the most expensive tobacco products. At the same time, authorities emphasized that anyone who had access to the Corsa for towing and repairs could have left the cigarette since it had broken down numerous times prior to the disappearance. This whole cigarette thing is somehow enigmatic because some of her friends were known smokers, like Jen King, but it was also known that Claudia didn't like people smoking around her. The examination of the mobile phone concluded that in the weeks prior to the disappearance, she had spent quite a time in Acombe, the western neighborhood of York. Most sources state that it remained unexplained why she went there since none of her known friends lived there. But on March 4, 2009, she was seen having a drink at the Acombe pub with an old friend, kitchen porter Anthony Newby, whom she used to work with at York University. On March 19, 2014, on the 5th anniversary of Claudia's disappearance, police discovered more unidentified fingerprints in her house, and they also revealed that they were searching for several men in vehicles related to the investigation. They were keen to identify the driver of an old-style and light-colored Ford Focus hatchback car, manufactured between 1998 and 2004, driving along Heworth Road. It became of interest because the car's brake lights came on as it approached Lawrence's address at 5:42 a.m., around the time Claudia would be heading to work. Detective Superintendent Di Malin, the new leader of the investigation following Galloway's retirement, said, "The fact the car appears to brake may indicate you saw something that could be very important to us." Investigators were on the hunt for another unknown individual too, who was spotted outside Claudia's house on Heworth Road by a cyclist between 6:45 a.m. and 6:55 a.m. on the morning she went missing. The man was described as white, 55 to 65 years old, with medium-length gray hair that appeared scruffy and windswept, and wearing a sandy-colored knee-length Mac-style jacket that was unfastened and either made of thick material or the wearer had extra clothing underneath. Malin highlighted, "We need to identify this man as soon as possible and find out what he was doing outside Claudia's house. This time would have been after she had left for work if she had walked. Therefore, why this person would be so close to her door remains a very important fact we need to establish." The detective also revealed that a third man is also yet to be found. He was seen between 2:30 and 3 p.m. on March 16th, just 3 days before the disappearance. The man was white, in his 30s, clean-shaven, about 5 feet 10 inches tall, slim build, with very tidy brown hair with a fringe, wore a mid-hip length light tan hooded Mac jacket, dark jeans, and dark footwear, and had a small dark rucksack, which did not appear to have much in it. The man was observed heading towards Claudia's house at the time she usually arrived home from work. He was talking on his phone and laughing while seemingly searching for a particular house. As he approached a house with a green door, a woman of similar description to Claudia, who was also on the phone, opened the door. It looked as if he was looking for an address. He was on the phone and he had a rucksack on his back, Malin explained. He appeared to walk up to a green door, which we thought was Claudia's door, and a lady at the door appeared surprised, but then let the man in, he added. The man appeared dejected and upset, but the woman let him into the house after looking up and down the street. Police were looking for a white Vauxhall Astra as well, which was parked next to the local cost cutter and a fish and chip shop on Heworth Road. The car was there for about 30 minutes, starting at 9:01 p.m. on March 18th. Another CCTV captured a man in dark clothes lurking around the buildings around 7:15 p.m., an hour before she spoke to her parents on the phone. The video shows him coming from the direction of the Nag's Head and Claudia's house, walking into Heworth Place from Heworth Road, past the brick wall and out of the camera. He then comes back 1 minute and 8 seconds later, possibly carrying a bag over his shoulder, and walks back towards Heworth Road. The man suddenly stops for a moment as someone crosses in front of him in light-colored clothes, as if he doesn't want to draw attention to himself, or maybe they wanted to avoid being seen together. The police believe the suspicious figure in the video may be involved in Claudia's disappearance and wanted to find both men seen in the footage, but none of them have come forward yet. A CCTV camera on a bus that was passing through the area recorded the next interesting detail. At 9:01 p.m., it captured a Ford Ranger Thunder parking just one door away from the woman's house in front of 48 Heworth Road. Inside the vehicle, a man with short gray hair was sitting in the driver's seat. Next to him, a woman was visible in the passenger seat, while another female and male passenger were present behind them. Eventually, a different bus recorded the same vehicle leaving at 9:37 p.m. The police learned that two regulars at the pub owned similar trucks. They had been questioned if they had anything to share, but it was a dead end. The following day, the camera that previously recorded the mysterious figure sneaking around Heworth Place managed to capture a nearly identical occurrence. At 5:50 a.m., a man with a similar build turns left at the corner, then walks out of the picture and comes back after 49 seconds. It is unclear to this day who this man was and what was he doing around the place. There were only a handful of arrests made over the years. For example, on May 13, 2014, Michael Snelling, a 59-year-old colleague, was questioned. The man lived close to Claudia at 8 Burnholm Grove, and they became friends eventually, as he often gave her lifts to work in his car. Police searched his and his mother's home in North Shields, Tyneside, but nothing useful was found. The man was released the next day on bail, and on November 17th, he was released without being charged. In July 2014, police arrested 46-year-old Paul Harris, the landlord of the Acomb pub, on suspicion of perverting the course of justice, but he was also released without charge. On February 25, 2015, police conducted fingertip searches in the alleyway behind Claudia's home. A month later, on March 23rd, a man in his 50s was arrested on suspicion of murdering Claudia. Then, on April 22nd, 3 more men of the same age were arrested in the York area, but all 4 were released on bail. On September 17th, North Yorkshire Police sent the Crown Prosecution Service information about the men. The purpose was to determine if charges should be pressed against them. However, on March 8, 2016, the CPS chose not to. In 2015, Gerard Tubb from Sky News wrote, "Meanwhile, journalists were finding the story hard to tell. For a privately educated daughter of a country solicitor, Claudia had some unusual acquaintances, and this remains the only missing person case where I've been warned off or threatened, not once but twice." We must stop here for a moment, because there are some weird coincidences regarding the 4 men, the red and the maroon-colored cars. Let's go back to the day Claudia finished working at the university canteen. A security camera caught her strolling through the parking lot, and shortly after she passed a red van, the vehicle was seen driving away. The next is the camera footage at the post office, which shows Claudia walking in the distance, but on the left side of the image, something interesting happens. Another red van appears next to the woman. The third weird coincidence came from the witness who saw the couple arguing near the university where Claudia used to walk to work. The witness also talked about a red or maroon-colored car. A similar red vehicle was believed to be owned by the company of one of the arrested men, and another had a maroon Volvo regularly parked in front of his house at Heworth Place. Of course, it may all be nothing, and it must be highlighted that none of the 4 men were charged with anything. The original investigation concluded that, shortly after leaving home, Lawrence had most likely been abducted and murdered. Authorities assumed that Claudia knew her killer, probably a local man who was also inside her house at one point. But even though there's a suspected murder, the police haven't pursued every tip or lead. One of these came from one Tajinder Parmar, who in June 2015 wrote a letter to Di Malin about a new location worth investigating. It turned out that on the very day Claudia disappeared, a new building got its foundations at the university and was filled with concrete. The planned science block was just 5 minutes away on foot from the chef's workplace and a few steps away from the route she used when walking to the restaurant. Ultimately, Parmar suggested the use of a ground-penetrating radar that could detect any disturbances in the foundations, but Malin dismissed the theory that she could be buried there. Now let's watch all the available CCTV footage in chronological order. Detective Mallon concluded that, from the review of all the evidence available, including the fact that Claudia's bed was made and it appears that she had eaten breakfast and brushed her teeth, it is our belief that she had left for work on the morning of Thursday, March 19, 2009. On June 21, 2018, a national appeal was made for information about an unknown woman found dead and severely decomposed after being washed up in a cove near Seaford in East Sussex. The inquest in Hastings was held on June 19th, and the deceased was described as being white, of medium build, between 25 and 55 years of age, with shoulder-length reddish-brown hair and dark eyes. She had no visible tattoos, but she had been wearing red nail varnish on her toes and 2 delicate silver necklaces. Authorities suspected she may have been in the sea or on the beach for days and suffered injuries consistent with either a fall from a height, being hit by a boat, or being swept by waves onto rocks. They also produced an image of what she might have looked like, and some believed the result slightly resembled Claudia Lawrence. Meanwhile, the woman's fingerprints, DNA, and a dental examination had been taken, but there was no match, and since no one came forward to claim to know her, her identity remains a mystery. The funeral took place on September 25th at Hailsham Cemetery, about 10 miles from where her body was discovered. Until 2019, there was no mechanism in England and Wales to specifically protect the property and affairs of a missing person. Instead, families could only take over the financial affairs of a missing person if they declared them dead, adding emotional pressure to families during an already difficult time. This also meant they could be left unable to pay debts or prevent repossessions or insolvency. This caused a lot of problems for the grieving families, but in April 2017, the Guardianship Missing Persons Act 2017 was passed and came into effect in 2019 and created a new legal status of guardian of the affairs of a missing person, allowing families to act in their best interests after their missing relative has been gone for 90 days or longer. It means that families can step in and safeguard their loved one's assets in their absence, for example, by suspending direct debits for mobile phone and utility bills or making mortgage payments. The new law was backed by Peter Lawrence, was named after his daughter, and became known as Claudia's Law. In August and September 2021, prompted by undisclosed new evidence, police searched the Sand Hutton gravel pits, a land used as a fishing pod since 1969. Detective Superintendent Wayne Fox announced on August 24th, "The searches which have commenced here today at Sand Hutton gravel pits are in relation to the disappearance and suspected murder of Claudia Lawrence more than 12 years ago. Authorities drained one of the lakes and used special ground-penetrating radars, along with cadaver dogs, but their attempts didn't lead to any success. Martin Dales, a friend and spokesman for the father, issued a fresh appeal to the public on March 17, 2021, marking 12 years since the disappearance, and urged those with information to come forward. Despite the fact that the investigation was one of the largest that local police had ever conducted, authorities voiced their disappointment that people with important information had refused to come forward in order to protect their reputations and personal lives. The family of Claudia Lawrence suspected she could also have been the victim of a jealous partner of one of the married men with whom she had a relationship. Di Mullen said in 2015, "I know people have lied to us. We already arrested one person on suspicion of perverting the course of justice, and I will continue to arrest people where there's a legal basis if I believe they're lying to me. We are still finding out more and more about Claudia's life and her lifestyle. People may lie because they are in a relationship, and there could be a number of reasons why they are withholding information. One of the motives for not coming forward already is they might be in a relationship with Claudia and don't want people to find out." In 2017, investigator Mark William Thomas said, "My police contacts are very clearly telling me that they believe those responsible for Claudia's disappearance and murder have been in this house. Thousands of interviews, work hours, and searches have been carried out over the years, while Claudia's shady private life attracted extensive and, with time, toxic media attention. It's really strange how many people were believed to be lying and hiding. It seems that Claudia had some serious secrets that she kept to herself, although family and friends cast doubt on that." In 2019, Peter Lawrence said he never lost hope of seeing his younger daughter again, but it's getting more difficult to believe. He said, "It just keeps going on and on, of course, because of not knowing what happened. And it is the not knowing which has always been the worst part about it. Sometimes it seems an eternity, and other times it just seems as though it wasn't very long ago at all. He died on February 11th, 2021, following a short illness at the age of 74 in St. Leonard's Hospice, York, without knowing what happened to Claudia.